Hello everyone and welcome to Education Checkup. I'm Johnette Magner. We're a weekly podcast here at KTBS and we cover what is happening in K-12 and higher education in Northwest Louisiana. I'm joined today by my co-host, Dr. Philip Roseman. When he's not working as a cardiologist, you can find him doing any number of things. In fact, this year he is chairman of A Better Louisiana, board chairman.
Yes.
But he's also an education expert and he's wearing that hat for us as he does every time he joins me.
Well, this is going to be a great 20 minutes of conversation. We have Keith Burton, who is the current superintendent of schools in Caddo, and I was going to say new, but it's not new anymore. You've been full...
About 6.5 months in.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
So
That still counts as new.
I guess so, yeah. But it's
I'm
a
still in the
lot of
honeymoon.
ground.
I'm still in the honeymoon period, I guess we should say.
You're in the first 100 days.
That's right.
There's a lot of good things going on, and I'd written an article for the Forum and one for the Advocate, really talking about tremendous improvements in NAEP testing in Louisiana and compared to the rest of the states in the union. And I talk about looking for Louisiana, and when I'm trying to find Louisiana in the group of 50, I'm always looking at the bottom and trying to see it in the last 40. No longer.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that, what happened, and then why do you think, what led to the improvements that we saw?
And please start by telling everyone what NAEP is.
Yeah, first of all, it's a national assessment. So you truly are being compared with states throughout the nation. And so it's very different from our local Louisiana LEAP test that really is a criterion reference test based upon criteria that Louisiana has established. This is a national exam, so it's very reliable when you're comparing the proficiency rates of math and reading to those other states. So it truly is an apple-to-apple comparison. And so really what caused our growth from around 49th in many places all the way up to around 14th is really, I think, you go back to the methodology around teaching literacy and mathematics. The state has adopted a back to the basics approach that is really built around what we know around the science of reading. We are following the national research that many other states have followed as well, especially Mississippi in the area of reading. And so really because of this statewide allocation of professional development and just the dedication of this is how we are going to teach reading. We are going to ensure not only our methodology is concise and is based on research, we're also going to ensure that we are allocating the appropriate amount of time that is needed for students to learn. We're going to ensure that all teachers receive this training, which is around 55 hours of additional training that's very built around the in-depth research. So it really goes back to a back to the basics approach, focusing on those fundamentals, and we're seeing those results really pay great dividends.
One of the other things that noteworthy over the last few years is really the degree that we've been involved in the state with improving our early childhood education. Could you talk about that a little bit, about what's going on in Caddo with early childhood education?
Yeah, there's, first of all, it has really grown from being something that the school system is taking ownership of and now we're finding that it's a true partnership with so many agencies around. We realize that because we have, in Caddo Parish, 71% of our students are living in a home of poverty, and because of that, many times when that child is entering kindergarten, they may not have that prerequisite skills that's going to enable them to come in on grade level. And so it's very important that we are emphasizing 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds, and by the way, all the way to as soon as the child's ready to enter daycare, ensuring that they're going to places that are using high quality curricula, that we are evaluating all of those early childhood centers around set establishments of what we're saying, what is quality. And so we have lots of support, not only through the Community Foundation, not only through other agencies, but really a consistency through the state around the importance of early childhood. That race is not over. Matter of fact, we are going to ensure that we continually educate, especially our local delegation, on the importance of early childhood education, because those funds don't flow through us through MFP dollars, the traditional funding that we receive for kindergarten through 12th grade. And so because there is a mixture of funds there, we're wanting to make sure that our legislators know how important those funds are, because it has truly moved the needle with students entering traditional school.
You know, and another thing that I've been really watching and think really is a tremendous plaudit for Louisiana and for Caddo is what we're doing with social studies, and the intense work that was done in order to develop the curriculum that we use for social study, and actually doing, despite all of this we're talking about reading and math, social studies is not lost in what learning about what, you know, how our country was built, but it's just expanded also. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think there's been two major moves there in the area of social studies. First of all, I think we have done a better job statewide in our sequencing of courses, ensuring that we are teaching the appropriate courses, whether that's civics, whether that's Louisiana history, whether that's United States history, that we're teaching them at the right grade level. The second thing is looking at our content, really what is most important, and we have heard for years, and now we're really seeing it as we're talking to those in the community, that there's a belief that our students are missing that foundation of what does it take to be a United States citizen. Mm-hmm. What does the Constitution truly provide for us as the greatest document ever to promote liberty, and ensuring just what is that patriotic pride that we all should have of living in the greatest republic in the world, and that's the United States of America. And so ensuring that content is intentionally taught, it's taught at the right time, and taught in the right way, so that the students are making a connection to what they're receiving in instruction to actual life as a future citizen.
How do you balance something like social studies content and history? Because as we know, there are often different versions of history and perspectives of history. How do you manage to handle both sides of that?
I think it goes back to teaching critical thinking and ensuring that someone, first of all, does not only have just one view of a topic, that they're able to think critically, and also many times, even if I may not agree with a certain belief, if I'm forced to put on, to walk in that person's shoes, and we used to do this in debate all the time. You're either debating for or against, and if you're able again to gain a different perspective, then it allows you really to look at many of the complex issues in a much more in-depth way. And so I think teachers who, first of all, have a depth of knowledge about the content is able to do that at a much easier rate. But that's a type of teaching that we are constantly coaching and that we're reinforcing through professional development. But teach the content, and we don't change the content. The content is the content, but yet we want to critically think about many of the issues that are hot topics. I mean, if you think of things such as prejudice, if you think of things such as, especially what's going on in current events now around some of the complex situations that our federal government is having to tackle, whether that's deportation, we don't want to just simply avoid those hard conversations, but you want to educate the students so that they can understand all different sides, and then also be able to get the truth from a critical source, ensuring that they understand what a quality resource is to get fact, not opinions, because unfortunately, if we're only using our cell phones and social media, many times we're only getting opinions, we're not necessarily getting facts. So teaching them through the process of being a good student of content.
One of the things we've talked about before, you and and I guess it's really a hot topic in terms of the state also, is engaging the high school student, to transform high school into something that's more engaging, more going to be helpful for them for the rest of their life, whether it's being career or military. What are some things that you see in the future and you're doing now, to kind of build that engagement and build those career possibilities?
Yeah, the whole topic of career, what used to be called career and tech education, is now shifting, and that's another thing I think the state should be very proud of, is the fact that now they are recognizing and not only supporting through allocations of resources, but also through the accountability measures that the workforce development is important. We've heard that from industry for years and years and years, but that's all we've done is we've just talked about it. Now the state has put in structures where schools are going to be rewarded, and they truly can, as a district, focus on that. So I think as far as what does that mean for engagement of a high school student, well, first of all, we're going to provide greater opportunity for students to have more hands-on experiences in the workforce, which means we are increasing our mentorships, we're increasing our internships and externships. We are trying at a much earlier rate ensuring that those students, especially in upper elementary and middle school, have the awareness of first of all, what are the high quality, high paying jobs that are going to be out there in the future? What does it take to get those jobs? What's the path, not only with content, but what is the path that I need to take as far as extracurricular activities, summer workforce, to ensure that I'm preparing for those. So it's really going to change the dynamics of what a high school student actually experiences during their time.
One of the things that's going on in the country is having enough people in the military that are interested in the military to do that. In my day in school, there was a lot of ROTC in every high school. Do we still have the ROTC, and do we still have those things to help build students toward a path in our career in the military?
Yes, and a matter of fact, not only do we have one of the best in the state. Our program, ROTC, junior ROTC program is just outstanding, and it's growing. Many times we've struggled finding instructors for all schools, and we have a leader now, Lieutenant Colonel Layfield, who's just doing an exceptional job. But yes, we do have that opportunity. Matter of fact, kids could even take ROTC instead of taking PE, so that's an elective that qualifies for physical education. And also the state is, talking about military preparation. The state is recognizing the ASVAB test now as a part of the accountability. And also if a student is graduating and going into a military academy, that high school is getting credit for that student going into that placement. So not only are we emphasizing workforce development, but also serving your country.
Well, there's been a lot over the last couple of years. You kind of walked into a lot of change in Caddo Parish, and even at the end of the last school year, some changes occurred at that time. Can you talk a little bit about how the school system is evolving? And I think a lot of it is around right sizing the school district, but also wanting the best kids in the best schools. How you've done that, and how that's progressing.
Sure. We, of course, we've said for a long time that we really must look at right sizing, and it's not necessarily just about closing buildings. It's ensuring that we can be very efficient with the resources we have. I mean, we can offer a much more dynamic experience to a student in a school of 500 students than we can in a student in a school of only 200. And so because of that, we've tried to really take it, especially this year, from the standpoint of let's not necessarily just look at it from a fiscal setting around closing a low enrolled building, but let's look at it from student experience and ensure the public understands what are the dynamics of what we're offering a child who's attending a low enrolled school versus what they could offer. In April, our board did vote to close 3 schools. That's probably one of the most difficult decisions a board member or a superintendent has to bring to the public, is a recommendation to close a community school. This time, though, we did do things differently. The very first thing we did is we went ahead and established where those students would be going, gave them plenty of opportunity. Matter of fact, just last week, we had students from Queensboro Elementary visiting J.S. Clark's campus, and very excited about that. But then we took our time when we did not know, we didn't have a final answer of what we were doing with the buildings. We said, you know what, we're not going to close immediately. We're going to delay that for 12 months to give the community time to work with us on repurposing those buildings, whether that's for community use, whether it's for private use. We'll be we'll just be very intentional around what school closures mean, because we do know that that has a great impact on a community. But if you look at it from the standpoint of a student, and I wish you could have seen the students from Queensboro the other day at J.S. Clark, when they got off and they had an opportunity to see the enrichments. They had an opportunity to walk that campus and see what they're going to be experiencing. Their faces just gleamed. And we're also adjusting K-8s in our district, because I think it's really important. We know from research that if we can reduce the number of transitions that a student has to make, especially in an urban school system, that just really strengthens the academic performance of the child. We see attendance increase, we actually see academic performance increase, and so we're a big proponent of K-8s. And so we are converting, of course we are just re-energizing Broadmoor K-8, really putting a lot of emphasis around their STEM program. But the J.S. Clark K-8 Academy is something we're very excited about, because it kind of goes back to something we talked about before, and that is workforce development and ensuring that those students in those communities, who I found were very underserved as far as the opportunities for career and technical education. And when I asked why, they just did not know. And so we are going to, at a much earlier rate, provide them with the experiences and the awareness of truly what's available to them, not only through the Career Center and through dual enrollment with our junior colleges and other higher ed campuses, but also what's going to be available to them in the workforce.
So Caddo Parish had some land in South Shreveport, is that correct? That you were holding with the expectation that at some point you would build a school there, and voters said they weren't interested, and you all are selling that land. Is that correct?
Well, voters never said they weren't interested. That was.
I thought they voted it down.
Well, I don't necessarily think it was. That was probably, if you go back and you look at what they voted down, it was probably more of the combination of what all we were putting with that construction.
Other things in that package
absolutely.
Versus that issue. Okay.
Yeah, the community's asked me multiple times, explain to me how an area in the southeast part of town does not, that area does not need a school when there's no public school, in that community. And of course, we could talk all about what is offered through the district that parents are choosing as far as magnet schools and all the options they have that they're very pleased with. My decision around encouraging the board to sell that land was simply around the fact that I felt that those 20 acres on Norris Ferry was not the proper location. When you really looked at the land dynamics, it's really built for commercial property usage. It's not necessarily the best location for a school. It's a very busy street. You had a railroad track behind it. You had a gas line that was running very close to it. And so at the 20-something years ago, 30 years ago when it was purchased, it was a great investment. There was more than 1,000% return on the investment. And my goal was to take those funds and be able to provide growth. We've got, there's conversation around expansion at Walnut Hill as far as an auditorium. We need to build a new wing at Donnie Bickham because we're converting that into a K-8 and closing Blanchard. We also have got to be able to address our Career and Technical Education Center. We've got to invest in new construction, and one of the ways to do that, I did not want to go to the voters with a new millage proposal. I wanted to be able to be good stewards of the resources we had, and so I packaged that as a part of our school closure plan.
This is a great conversation, and we got to continue it more, but we got to stop here and come back, and we want to talk more about K-8 schools and the other choice things that we're talking about in the district that we didn't get to today. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
looking
very
forward
much
to
for
it.
coming.
Absolutely.
And thank you for joining us for Education Checkup. You can view this podcast anywhere you view your other podcasts, or of course go to our website at ktbs.com/podcast. Have a good day, and be sure to join us next time for Education Checkup.